It's so crazy that season 2 is here already. It just seems like it was last Tuesday. It was season 1. Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Jimmy Lombardo
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Season
wizard.
2 already, just moving right along.
Moving right along. We watched a crazy, amazing movie today. A movie that I was like, so I've seen this once, and this was my second time watching it, and I was like, not super looking forward to watching it because I was like, oh, I like just watched this, but not recent enough that I'll remember, so I need to watch it again. And then as soon as like within the first like 10 minutes, I was like, yeah, I'm glad I'm watching this again.
I watched it the first time as like a younger kid that I found the VHS tape for it and I watched it. I don't think I was supposed to watch it, but I watched it and completely different than how I remember it. Looking at it from an adult like perspective, from a kid's eyes, I just remember it being like just like the cop was out saving the city, and then I'm watching it now and I'm like, dear God.
Yeah, it's lit. It's notoriously very violent. Got took 8 tries to get an R rating. They had to take out moments from the ED-209 killing the corporate guy, which is still super violent,
Yeah.
and as well as Murphy's death.
I think the violence, even though it is really like grotesque and like the scenes where there's killing is way like done really well, but it's a lot of it. Do you think it's a little over top, almost bridging the line of comical?
It is 100%. And I read that was the point. He was like arguing with well, we should say season 2. We are talking obviously today about we just don't mention the movie at all. Um, we were talking about Paul Verhoeven's RoboCop. Um,
You should be following
and
along. You're the one that read the thumbnail, everybody. You know what you got
right,
into.
exactly. You know what you're getting yourself into. This is the first of 2 directors we're doing this season, the other being Coen Brothers. But we'll talk a little bit about that later on in the show.
Technically, that makes 3 directors because they're brothers, but we
That's
won't.
true.
We won't.
Very true.
Won't get into it.
And at the movies first. Um, that was his argument with the MPAA board, was that so actually the scene that got the biggest reaction from crowds is when the henchman gets like doused in toxic waste and is like melting and gets hit by Red Foreman's car, who is the villain in this film, uh Kurtwood Smith. And he just
Oh my
explodes
God, that's I
into.
couldn't figure out that is.
Did you just put that together?
Yeah, I was like, man, who is this guy? I'm like, he looks really familiar. I'm like, why is he such a bad guy? I was like, I remember.
Yeah,
Oh, there we go. Nice. Hell yeah.
it's so funny. Um, he has a line in this movie. He walks. This is the funniest thing to me. I know it probably shouldn't be, but he goes to kill Bob Morton, who is played by Miguel Ferreira, which I think we're just going all over the place here. But fun fact, he is one of 2. He's like the guy that is in everything. He is the one of the executives, and he is one of 2 Twin Peaks actors that's in this movie.
Oh,
But Kurtwood Smith goes to kill Bob Morton, and he's got these 2 ladies that he's doing cocaine with. And when Kurtwood Smith walks in, he goes, "Bitches leave," and it's like it made me laugh to see Red Foreman just say like this give them this directive, "Bitches leave." Paul Verhoeven was arguing that kids that saw this movie, I don't know why they were showing this to kids during test screenings, but they were there, were like laughing at this toxic waste man exploding and turning into chicken stock. And when they cut it down to an R-rated film, he said that it got like less funny and more like people were
I'd love to see the cut.
disturbed
I'd love to
by the
see the like
violence.
extended cut, like with
Yeah,
everything in it, the
me too.
unrated RoboCop version. If it's out there, I'd love to see it. I think it was crazy to see when he drives his car straight into that like toxic slime or the toxic waste. And see this almost comical. Just all it says is toxic waste. Car hits it, floods the car, and he just comes out like Cronenberg style film with his fingers falling off. And I was like, man, we're not
Dude,
skipping a beat in season 2 here.
The
skipping a
fingers are
beat.
so gross. They're like hanging down from, oh my god. Cronenberg also got offered this film.
Is so like wait, does Verhoeven just do all the films that Cronenberg turns down at this point? Is that what it is?
Probably. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I read it. There was a couple other directors they had in mind. Alex Cox, he did Repo Man. But imagining a David Cronenberg version of this where it would focus so much more on RoboCop's like flesh
Mm-hmm.
being like melded to metal.
Yeah, yeah. Like when he
It'd be a lot
takes,
more horrifying.
I thought it was crazy. These effects were insane, especially when we first see Murphy's interaction with the gang. They're in that mill. He's like walking through, and they were like, "Oh, we finally got you!" And they start shooting him. When he shoots his hands off, when Broderick shoots his hand off, and you just see his like stub laying there,
Yeah.
and just keeps getting shot, and like the blood spray, and just the arm falling off. I was like, man, these effects are going wild.
Yep. They did that too. So this is all just coming from my dumb Wikipedia brain. That is fresh off of reading a bunch of this stuff. But I think it's interesting. They did that so that you would have more sympathy for Murphy because they think that it thought that you didn't spend enough time with him beforehand to feel sympathetic
It's a
for
good
him if he
point.
just died. So they
It's a
wanted to
good
show
point.
him really like going through it. And it's also kind of a Christ story. This is probably the theme that I buy the least. Um, just because I think it's a resurrection theme. I don't know that necessarily makes it a Christ allegory or anything, but
I think you're
it's
pushing for that one for anybody that believes
right.
that theme. I think you're pushing too hard for that. There's plenty of other themes and plenty of other undertones to this film where I don't think you need to think it's a Christ resurrection film.
I agree.
I think it
Um,
definitely dives into more of the corporate culture and the police state, or letting big business can control everything, and kind of satirically putting that on the spin of like or the way that the government was at that time.
so yeah, so I think it's super interesting. The writers of this film wrote it to be a satire. They were self-professed hippies, served in World War II and saw a lot of extreme violence and were against war and against Reaganomics and everything. But Paul Verhoeven, this was actually only his second English speaking film. And when he read the script, he read the first page and thought it was shit and threw it away. And then his wife tried to get him to read it and he said no. And then somebody finally convinced him to read it and like think about the undertones. And he had a really hard time. I think it's incredible how effective the movie is because he did not really, and it's, the directing is amazing. Like it has nothing to do with it being bad directing, but it's so interesting to me that he didn't really grasp the themes that were
Yeah, which
presented in the
makes
writing,
sense. Yeah, I mean, you weren't really
you know?
exposed to that.
But the writers were on set with him and they were able to discuss like scene by scene kind of what those undertones were.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels like a dual effort. You have Paul Verhoeven, who is an excellent director, and there's some really amazing effects and shots in this film. um and I think having those writers on set actually helped him kind of wrap his head
Yeah.
around what they were trying to get across.
Do you personally think that this film is a success, as far as like from a director point of view? Do you think it was a successfully done film, or do you have like what are
I,
your gripes about it? Do you have any like takeaways that like
I don't
maybe
have
made you?
I don't I don't think I have my singular gripe is that at the end of the movie he shoots Dick Jones, and it's kind of this thing of like, we love, okay, so you're watching cop movies, we love a rogue cop. We love to watch a cop that's like, I don't follow the rules, you
Mm,
know? But in real life, obviously that's not good. That's very bad.
yeah,
And so this movie actually does a really good job because they inadvertently they create the perfect police officer because he doesn't have, aside from this subplot about like Directive Ford like not being able to take out an OCP officer or whatever, like they inadvertently create this person that is moral and that serves to protect and literally to protect and serve, and like isn't can't be corrupt or anything because he is programmed to be just
yeah.
a police officer, a moral person. um So I think it's kind of like yeah, I mean Dick Jones murdered somebody. I don't know if it's like just like kind of a wink and a nod, or if it's just giving the audience what they want to see at the end of the movie, that he just like blows Dick Jones away out of a window, you know.
Well, I mean, he did.
Um
Well, he did do more than just murder one person. I mean, he was like he basically was funding that gang, like Broderick's gang and stuff, and was protecting him. And he's like, especially when you see RoboCop throwing him through out the window, trying to get his vengeance, and then realizing that he can't kill him, and then he's like screaming, "I work for Dick Jones! I work for Dick Jones!"
right.
And so I think that is just like, you know what, Dick Jones is evil. Blow him right
Yeah,
out the
and
window.
you know what else makes sense is he's regained he regains his humanity over the
Mm-hmm.
course of the film. So like he becomes less perfect of an individual because humans are flawed, and as he regains his humanity, he's coming face to face with one of the people who is inadvertently responsible for him being created, you know, and
Yeah.
resenting this life that he's like now has to live. He's never going to be a whole person again. And so it's almost like vengeance. I think if somebody watches this for the first time now, it could potentially be underwhelming just because it set the bar for a lot of things that we've seen happen since this movie. Like if people are used to this is I think it's still pretty rad and kind of extreme, but I think if you are used to a lot of extreme stuff, or like if you've seen a lot of these sci-fi action movies, or even like John Wick and things like that, this might feel you're like, oh, like I get why this was a big deal when it came out, but now it might fall a little bit flat for someone.
Yeah.
But personally, for me, I absolutely love it.
Mm.
What do you think about like LoMoCop? Like they take like so like we're like horror we die in like a freak cocaine factory accident, and they they put what's left of us together to make a singular cop, but they accidentally take all of the worst parts of us.
I just
And
like
so like
I just picture us like going for our first crime and we're just crying in front of the suspect. We're like, "Can you listen to my problems, please? Nobody
you just
else
see a dead
will."
we see a dead body and just immediately puke.
Yeah.
And are you guys mad at me? Do you guys like me?
I just want to know if everybody's okay with me being here. If not, I can leave.
um so I watched this for the first time last summer, and it was when this is like I don't know. I mean, we don't really get too political or anything, and I don't think this is too political. It's just kind of analyzing what's happening. But uh, so I watched this last summer, and there was a lot of rioting going on, and protests against the police and police brutality. And so you know, knew people that were hit with rubber bullets and had tear gas kind of shot at them and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was crazy that I watched this movie that's 30 years old that touched on a lot of these things, like militarization of the police. Like they just straight up their goal is to like gentrify Detroit. And I love this effect too because it's stop motion, which is like different than anything else in the movie, but it's so unique. They
It's almost
bring
like
in the
Robot
stop motion, the
Chicken.
ED-209.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. The ED-209, who in you know that unforgettable scene blows away that OCP executive or whatever, board member. But to see them just be like that, the idea is that they are trying to I mean the police are being funded by corporation, you know, they are being given like military grade weapons, and like you said earlier, they're working with gangs, they're working with criminals, so by extension these criminals, you know, um whenever Kurtwood Smith's character is given the directive to kill RoboCop at whatever cost or whatever, just give him a bazooka. Like they just give him whatever he wants,
But
you
isn't
know?
that the perfect business strategy, though? So not only do they control the police, but they also control a lot of the criminals so they can keep it just where they need it to. They're
Yep.
giving the police just enough to be able to go get the criminals. They're giving the criminals just enough to fight the cops. And at the end of the day, both of them need OCP support. They give them more and more weapons, more and more gear, and it gets progressively worse until you need giant machines to fight each other.
Yeah. 100%. The other theme and the funny thing, the directing decision or writing, I mean, however you want to look at it, I don't know. I haven't read the script, but this creative decision to have these commercials in the middle of the film,
Yeah,
I am over the moon with that.
that
I
was my
love it.
favorite
I think
part.
it's so funny and it's so unique, and it takes a jab
I'd
at
buy that for a
capitalism.
dollar. I'd
Right.
buy that for a dollar. I'd buy that for a dollar.
The like the beginning one is the one that is so funny to me. The doctor, like they're like, we it's like the health clinic, and then you find out that they're peddling like electronic hearts that are made
Mm-hmm.
by like Yamaha and like Sony, and it's such a like and then at the end he's like, oh, and by the way, we care,
I
and
like it.
like winks at the
It
camera.
was almost like a second thought in that shot where he was like walking away and he was like, "Oh, by the way, we care."
See that when I put my water down, it shot up and hit me in the forehead and dripped down my face.
No,
Wow. Guys, instant replay. If you're watching this on YouTube, see camera enhance.
can we get enhancing?
Um,
I would like to talk about some minor issues that I had with the film that I normally
okay,
don't do. This is the first time I think
definitely.
where I have some like things that
Oh God,
bothered me a little bit.
raging bull all over again.
Yeah, no, it is. No, it's not that bad. So overall, I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was well done. I liked the scenes. I liked how I was directed. I just have a problem, and it's a theme once we get later into the 80s, early 90s. This overacting, these overlaps, like when those bad guys were like, and like it's so much.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah.
and like I
Yep.
can't stand that like for some reason it's like it's like a decade of this happening from like 86 to 96. It's like a common theme wherever anyone's a bad guy, they have to do like the Joker laugh, like it's a Batman movie. Just so you know, it's like that's how you know that someone's a bad guy is because their laugh is just so cringy.
It's so funny you say that because I was watching Day of the Dead last night, um, which made me consider us maybe covering George A. Romero in the future,
Can't
because
can't.
he's from Pittsburgh. He's from Pittsburgh.
I know that's why we
Oh,
can't do it.
and before I forget, the final showdown in this film, between RoboCop and Kurtwood Smith,
Yep,
filmed in Pittsburgh.
sure was.
Very cool. Um, but Day of the Dead, I've seen it one time and I didn't like it, which is, I mean, it's like people like that movie. I feel like there was something that I wasn't getting, and I was enjoying it more this time around. But it's 100% the same thing. It takes place in an army compound where the army characters are like the villains. They're kind of like the machismo. We're taking control of everything. We're the tough guys, and it is so cartoonish almost. Like, it's like somebody told him like follow every army guy trope that you can
Mm-hmm.
think of. You know.
Yeah, it's just the overacting for is like the bad guys and like some of the cheesiness of it I didn't really like. That's my only like main issue that could have been fixed. And my second issue, they did the best that they could. It was 1987. I understand it, but when RoboCop shoots Dick Jones out of that window, we see the glass break. I hope that everybody notices how long Dick Jones's arms are as he's falling out the window. It's like one of those inflatable balloon people just falling out the window. Like his arms
I
just
think
like
I
stop
think
being
it's stop
arms.
motion. If I think that might be the other part of the movie that's stop motion. I know that I read the ground is a matte painting. So it's like a just a stationary painting someone created, but I think that him falling out the window might have been a stop motion
Yeah,
effect.
and I get
That's why
it.
it looks so
I
funky.
mean, it's 1987. You're doing the best you can. You don't have the budget to like really like
Right.
dial home like the craziness of falling out a window. But when he fell out that window and like his like body was like separating from himself, it was just like the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Those are my only issues. The dialogue lost me at times, but overall the writing wasn't bad. The storytelling was great.
There's some like yeah, I'll just say like I love this movie. I would highly recommend it because I think that it has something for whether you want to watch it as a dumb 80s sci-fi action movie or you want to watch it as like satire and something with maybe a little bit deeper meaning. whichever avenue you're going in, or if you're looking for a little bit of both, I think you're going to come out of this enjoying it.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm just glad
there,
that you didn't watch the 1987 one, and then I watched like the remake of it. That would have been.
that would have been bad, buddy. I almost did. I almost watched the remake to surprise you, but I thought you would be pissed, so I didn't.
No, remember when we were doing the Cronenberg film and I watched like 10 minutes of the remake of like
Rabid or
Rabid?
something
Yeah,
like that?
yeah. Like I watched the new Rabid and I was like, this doesn't seem right.
That's the only one I haven't seen. I bought the RoboCop trilogy. I got the Blu-ray set, so I've seen the first 3, and let me tell you, second one maybe loses a little bit of the flair, but it's pretty on par with this movie. It's interesting. The third movie, people hate it, and I thought it was like a blast.
So who
I
directs
really enjoyed
the second and third one then? If it's not Paul. I don't know if I necessarily like, if you're gonna do like a series, I feel like you almost need,
it's like a quality control thing, like it does get kind of out of hand. And I do think RoboCop 3, if I'm not mistaken, may have been straight to video. Okay, RoboCop 2, directed by Irvin Kershner and written by Frank Miller.
Oh.
Irvin Kershner did special effects for The Empire Strikes Back, and some Bond films. So that's his main kind of call to fame. Let's see RoboCop 3 real quick. By no means would I say RoboCop 3 is like an amazing movie, but I would say like today was perfect. A rainy Saturday, Sunday, just looking for something to watch. It's
You're
good
just
for
so
that.
ready for it not to be Sunday. You're like, nice rainy Saturday outside.
The Sunday scaries are through the roof today. This is fascinating. RoboCop 3, directed by Fred Decker, who I believe directed. Okay, he did Monster Squad with Shane Black. He did House. He did Night of the Creeps. And he wrote The Predator with Shane Black. I do own the remake. I grabbed a copy when I grabbed the other ones, but I haven't watched it yet. So this was interesting because you and I had talked about this a little bit, I believe, in the past. When they were talking about RoboCop's character and like design and everything, they used Judge Dredd as a reference.
Definitely tell. Like it has like Dredd-esque vibes throughout that movie, for sure.
I just think I can't believe a movie called RoboCop is such a dumb name, but it is of its time though, because it's like now it seems dumb, but at the time it kind of makes sense that during the 80s they would be like, what's like the coolest name we could give it to bring people in?
I think you're like, oh well, that's a dumb name, because that's exactly how we named our media company. So it's interesting that you're like, don't combine two words into.
Well, no, it's different. That's different. I think it's different.
Don't combine two words into one. That's dumb. RoboCop, silly. Lomo, great.
There was an excess of companies using the term Robo in their products after this movie came out.
That makes sense.
Which is kind of funny too. Had like a real world effect. I love this movie. I recommend it. Peter Weller is awesome, and he is in Naked Lunch, which is the Cronenberg movie I just watched. I'm still watching some on my own, even though we've moved on, and he is great in that film as well. So I think he puts on a really good performance here. He had a miserable time shooting the film. Fun fact: him and the director Verhoeven both had a miserable time shooting this movie. And Miguel Ferreira had a blast. He loved it. So
I can imagine there's a lot of stuff that's happening in this movie, and when you have like complete control and you're trying to like figure everything out and like get these scenes right, and with pretty much like, I know that as a director you don't want to do scenes like more than a couple times, so especially when you're like driving a car into like a toxic waste bin, or you're throwing somebody off of like a like a catwalk, or you're like shooting these like oh, one thing I forgot too is they're like one-arming these like assault cannons, like just like the old west. They're just like these big like 50 cal snipers. They're just like one-handed, and we're like pow 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 pow, just blowing up the city.
That's another example of like where this movie kind of goes off the rails, which I guess it's a movie about a robot cop. So what do I know about movies going off the rails? But it's so funny when Kurtwood Smith's henchman is like drops all of the steel beams on RoboCop and he's like, "I did it. I got him." And Nancy Allen's character just like shoots, I don't even know what kind of weapon it is, but it's some kind of explosive because she just explodes the building that he's standing in. One of the explosions was bigger than it was supposed to be, and an extra's coat caught on fire, and they paid him $400. People in the scene were scared and actually like backing up because they didn't know it was going to be that big of an explosion.
That's
Um,
nutty, man. But anyways, overall, I definitely enjoyed it as well. Um, I'm glad that you did too. I'm excited for to see the rest of these movies.
yeah.
From
What is the second Verhoeven film?
Total Recall.
Okay, Total Recall.
Mm,
So moving right down the line, I'm excited. I also watched that for the first time last summer,
mm.
and that is feels definitely kind of like a cousin to this movie, I
Oh
think.
yeah, we'll definitely have a lot. We'll have just as much to talk about Total Recall and some of those scenes that we did today for RoboCop.
And abruptly switching gears, we will be discussing Blood Simple next week. It is the Coen Brothers' first film, available on HBO Max for those who have it. Um, Also watched this for the first time recently, which was part of the reason that I wanted to cover it and really enjoyed it. I won't spoil much beyond that, but I think it lays down a great template for their films in the future and kind of the themes that they explore a lot of the time. And I think you're gonna enjoy it, man.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I mean, I really like the Coen brothers, so I'm excited to see their first film. We're really going to see their transformation throughout the whole entire process for season 2, and that is exciting.
Let us know your favorite RoboCop film in the comments if you'd like, and let me know personally whether the remake's worth watching or not. I'm sure I'll get to it at some point, and when I do, I'll be sure to give you guys a little bit of an update. Before we go, Jimmy, is there anything you've watched lately that you would recommend to the people?
I haven't watched anything. It's been a busy week. I haven't really watched anything too much, so I have zero recommendations, unfortunately.
That is okay. I'm pulling up my letterbox right now to see what I've watched recently. Um, I watched Tremors. Can't remember if I talked about this on the last episode or not. I don't think we recommended movies in the last episode. Watched Tremors for the first time since I was like 12, and it was just as much fun as it was when I was a kid. So I highly
Nice.
recommend revisiting Tremors. Great time. And then I watched Naked Lunch with Peter Weller, and that's a Cronenberg film that is all over the place and super surreal, and that can be frustrating sometimes. But if you like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, this movie predates it, and it is essentially a 1950s version of Fear and Loathing, with a guy high on bug extermination powder, writing
My favorite,
things.
bug extermination powder. Love it.
Bug powder. We're all doing bug powder in 2021,
Bug
baby.
powder.
Woo! All right, that's all I got. Jimmy, anything else from you?
Let us know what your favorite movie was from season 1 in the comments below, and let us also know what your favorite movie that you're looking forward to us covering in season 2 from our two very different directors.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely, guys. All right, Blood Simple. Next week, we'll see you back here. Thank you for coming to another episode of At the Movies. We'll see you out
And you'll
there.
see LoMoCop next week. Bye bye.
LoMoCop.